Hey guys, welcome back to Forest Firearms. This is Thomas, and today I've got a really interesting piece of world history actually for you guys. This is the FN Model 1910. This particular model is the pre-World War I manufacture. You can tell as indicated by both the serial number, which it can be a little tricky. They only printed the serial number on these on the frame of the gun. There's no prints of serial numbers on slide, barrel, anything else. But they made about 69,000 before World War I started. This one is in the low 59,000s, so that tells me this is probably one of about the last 10,000 made before the war started. You can also indicate the age of the gun by things like the grips. The grips on the pre-World War I models were made of horn, as with this particular gun, they are horn. Between World War I and World War II, they used more of a hardened plastic. After World War II, they used wood, usually. But you got a nice checkering, little FN Browning stamp here. A number of other proof marks on the barrel and on the lower side of the slide and frame here. This gun is very interesting for a lot of reasons, but one of the most significant things ever done with this gun, and you could argue it was the most significant shot by a gun in history, was the assassination of Archduke Ferdinand was with one of these. That is the event that sparked the First World War in, I believe it was June 28th, 1914 in Sarajevo. The Archduke and his wife were killed at point blank range in their motorcade with one of these by a man named Gavrilo Princip. To the Serbs, Gavrilo Princip is viewed today in many places as a hero. However, what he kicked off was one of the most tragic events in human history of World War I, of which only started a few days after the assassination. Functionally, this gun is very different. There's a grip safety that is very firm. You've got to depress it with some pretty serious intention. It's not like 1911 grip safety. You kind of, if you're holding the gun, the safety is depressed. But this gun, it's pretty firm. You've also got a safety here that disengages your grip safety. Also doubles as your slide lock. There are like no protruding parts on this gun. Your slide lock and safety is almost flush with the side of the gun. Your sights are actually integrated right into the top of the slide, but they're very hard to acquire. They're very, very small, if you can get a good angle on that there. It's very difficult to see your front sight, of which not such a problem with the intended use of this gun. This is very much a close range last resort pistol. It's just in 32 ACP, 7-round mags with the dreaded bottom of the grip release there. About one of the more difficult ways to extract a magazine from a gun, but there are a couple of advantages to something like this. Like I say, with no protruding parts, you can very easily put it in a pocket and draw without snagging on anything. The profile of the gun is extremely, extremely low because the main recoil spring is actually wrapped around the barrel. There's no separate spring underneath the barrel or anything like that. So your profile is only about a finger width from the top of your hand. So your point and shoot accuracy, pretty good in close range. But let's go ahead and give this guy a few more shots. Again, like I said, this is 32 ACP, not really thought of as a military round by a lot of people because they're very small and don't do an awful lot of damage, but they do enough. If you're a good shot, or if you just need to have a gun on you and you got some little pocket that you can conceal one of these in, it is an effective choice. In the case of the assassination of the Archduke, they actually were using the same gun, but in .380. They make them in both calibers. It's a simple barrel change to transfer from 32 ACP to .380. There's my 7. Let's go ahead and give it a few shots from right here. Now, as with most your semi-automatic firearms, you simply engage like so. This is a striker-fired pistol, not a hammer. Let's go ahead and give it a try. Right, missed a few there. Like I say, this is not a gun that you would use at any sort of distance. Like, if I were to be using this, be it in combat or self-defense, I would want to be pretty much right up in the guy's grill, because this is, the sights, as I've said, very difficult to acquire at distance. Now this gun has another side to its history, as it was used very frequently by the Belgian military in the First World War. These are very uncommon in the US because of that. They were made specifically for the European market, primarily Belgium. And we, in the First World War, the US, had little to no contact with the Belgian military or peoples. We mostly were in France in the First World War, on the borders of Germany. So there are a few ways this could have come back to us. Perhaps a German took it from a Belgian who had it taken from him by an American, or a British man who traded it to an American man. There's a number of ways that it could have got here, but it's not common to see these in the US. They're rather interesting, and like you guys know that I like strange guns that are more uncommon or less known of. This is definitely one of them. Now there's another aspect to dating the age of your gun that I hadn't mentioned yet. This print on the side here, the text here, depending on the font, you can determine whether the slide of the gun is pre-World War I, post-World War I, or post-World War II. This serif script, that is the pre-World War I style, and where you've got the Fabrique Nationale d'Armes de Guerre, the de between d'armes and guerre, should be lowercase if you've got the serif script. The sans serif script, which is a little harsher looking, not as many fine edges, was more so used during the between the First and Second World Wars, but they still kept the lowercase de in the middle here. If you have one where it's all uppercase, that is a post-World War II slide, almost certainly. So this, all the parts have indicate that they match, that this is a whole World War I gun, that nobody replaced the slide with a post-World War II or pre-World War I. This is all the pre-World War I manufacture. So it's easiest to date these guns if they are pre-World War I, because they only really manufactured them before the First World War in 1912, 13, and early 1914. They stopped production during the war and resumed in, I think it was 1916. They kept making the guns all the way through like 1978, and they made over, I think it was 700 and some odd thousand of these, all total. But the first 69,000 are pre-World War I. So if you have one that's pre-World War I, you can kind of guesstimate the date that it was manufactured. Also, in the first year of their manufacture, they had a bit of a notch that ran along here. So that was only done in like late 1912, early 1913. So that was the earliest form of the slide on these guns, was with the notch along the side. This does not have that, leads me to believe it is last half of 1913, first half of 1914, that and it being one of the last 10,000 or so made before the war. I'm pretty certain that this gun is 1914. Cannot know for sure. There are no actual numbers on how many were made per year, just how many were made before the First War, before the Second War, and then after the Second War. So let's go ahead and give this another 7 shots. I'm kind of liking this little thing. I've only got one magazine. Magazines for these are very expensive for such a tiny little thing. I've done some looking. You can get them for 70 to 100 bucks typically. But parts in total for these guns are very hard to find. As I've said before, these are not a common gun in the US. So if I were to replace a part, I'd have to really keep my eyes open. And there is one part that I wish to replace. I will show you here in a moment after I load this magazine. Okay, that should be my full 7 shots. Okay, now I want you to look up real close right here. This bushing should be a little taller, and it should have a knurled surface with hash lines all the way around. Somebody tried to force this off with a wrench, it looks like, and smashed up the edges of it, really scarred the nose of the gun. It's upsetting, but with the nature of this gun being as uncommon as it is, it's not something that would deter me from buying it. I do want to find a new bushing if and when I can. As I've said, parts for this gun, very, very difficult to come by. Let's go ahead and give it a few more shots. All right, that's all 7. Again, even at this distance, not an easy gun to acquire your target with. Very tiny sights, but you know, it's effective, it works. Safety is functional on this gun. I have another 32 that you guys may have seen the video with, the CZ27. Safety on that does not function. So actually being able to disengage your firing ability is nice to be able to do reliably. But yeah, interesting little piece of history. I'm hoping to bring it out a few more times, maybe get some more guns to compare with it. Meanwhile, I hope you guys enjoy. It's been Thomas with Forest Firearms, and I'll see you next time.